What if I told you a single cow saved the life of a president, not a general, not a sniper, not a secret agent, a cow, silent, still, and unshakably in the way? In today's unbelievable true story, we dive deep into the real-life incident that almost took down President Ibrahy Trari of Burkina Faso, and how a mysterious animal, standing alone on a quiet dirt road, stopped a convoy just seconds away from disaster. This isn't fiction. This isn't a parable. This is history. And what followed? A shocking betrayal from inside the palace, a web of foreign interference, and a nation waking up to a new kind of war, one fought not with bombs, but with bribes, handshakes, and surveillance. This is not just about survival, it's about fate, loyalty, and the strange, sacred forces that protect those who fight for their people. So before you scroll, pause, because the cow that stood still might be the loudest warning the world's ever seen. It began like any other morning in the dry savannas of eastern Burkina Faso, quiet, golden, and filled with promise. The sun had just begun to rise, casting long shadows across the land as President Ibrahy Trari stood beside his black SUV, sipping tea with quiet focus. To the world, this was just another official visit. To the hundreds of young people waiting for him at a rural youth center nearby, it was a moment of inspiration. Speeches had been written, drums were already echoing through the village square, but no one, not even the president, knew that this ordinary day was about to become legendary. Time was slipping away. The president's team was running late, a rare misstep for a leader known for precision. That's when Idrissa, his trusted advisor, tall, confident, persuasive, stepped forward with a suggestion that sounded reasonable, even helpful. "Sir," he said, "if we take the main road, we'll be 2 hours late. But there's a shortcut. Through the bush, it's quiet, no towns, no people. We'll be there in 40 minutes. The idea was simple, efficient, strategic, and dangerous. Ibrahim raised an eyebrow. "Is the road secure?" "Yes, sir. Our men cleared it yesterday," Idrissa replied quickly. "I personally oversaw it." Another voice chimed in. Karim, one of the president's bodyguards. His tone was different. Lower. Warning. "I've never liked that road," he said. Too quiet. But the pressure was mounting. Fuel was limited. The crowd was waiting. Time was not on their side. The president took a deep breath, processing the conflicting advice. And then, with the calm resolve of a man who has seen more than he says, he nodded. "Fine. We'll take the shortcut." The convoy rolled out, a tight unit of 5 vehicles flanked by armed trucks, gliding down a dirt path lined with brittle grass and silence. No villages, no people, no signs of life. Just the eerie, empty quiet of the bush. What came next would change everything. But no one in that convoy could have imagined that salvation would come not from a soldier, not from a plan, but from a cow. Not just any cow. A silent guardian. A living mystery. And the only thing standing between the president and death. Something was watching that road. And it wasn't human. The shortcut road stretched ahead like a dusty ribbon, narrow and uneven, carved into the earth by time and forgotten wheels. The president's convoy moved slowly but deliberately, their wheels kicking up clouds of ochre dust as the bush closed. And around them, tall dry grass swayed in the breeze, brushing against the sides of the armored trucks. The deeper they went, the more the world fell silent. No huts, no smoke, no laughter, no goats. Just emptiness. 30 minutes in, tension hung in the air like heat. Even the birds seemed to have fled this place. Karim, seated behind the president, scanned the landscape constantly. His instincts, those hardwired reflexes honed over years, were screaming that something was off. But there was nothing nothing at all, until it appeared. In the center of the road, blocking their path completely, stood a single brown cow. Its coat was dusty, its horns chipped. It didn't move, didn't blink, didn't flinch. It just stood there squarely in the middle of the dirt track, staring directly at the presidential vehicle. The entire convoy halted. At first, the guards chuckled. A cow? In the middle of nowhere? One driver honked. Another guard shouted, "Move, shoo!" Still, the cow didn't budge. It was as if it had planted its legs into the earth itself. A soldier fired a warning shot into the air. The sound cracked like thunder, but the cow remained. "This is ridiculous," one guard muttered. "It's just a cow." Two soldiers stepped out with sticks, trying to prod it gently off the road. The cow took one step back, and then returned. To the exact same spot, right in front of the president's car, unmoving, unshaken, unafraid. Inside the SUV, President Traore watched, silent and alert. He lowered the window. "Why hasn't it moved?" he asked. "It's acting strange," Karim replied, almost like it knows. Idrissa, impatient now, waved his hand. "We're wasting time, drive around it." But as the driver turned the wheel slightly, ready to bypass the animal, the president's voice cut through the tension. "Stop the car." Silence fell. What was it about this cow? Why wouldn't it move? And more importantly, what was it trying to stop them from finding just a few feet ahead? The engine shut off, dust settled, and for a moment the world stood still. President Traore leaned forward slightly, his eyes fixed on the animal that refused to move. He felt it deep in his chest. Something wasn't right. This wasn't about convenience anymore. It was something else, something heavier. "Send a man to check under the cow," he said calmly. Idrissa blinked, caught off guard. "Sir, it's just a cow," I said. The president repeated, "Check the ground." Two soldiers exchanged nervous glances before stepping forward. The cow remained still, its large, calm eyes watching them but not reacting. One soldier crouched low and gently brushed away the dry topsoil near the cow's front legs. Then he froze. "Sir," he whispered, voice cracking. "There's something here." Panic rippled through the convoy like a lightning bolt. Officers rushed to the spot. The dirt had been disturbed, subtly, carefully. The soldier leaned in again, brushing more soil away until a glint of metal caught. The sunlight, a thin wire, barely visible. His fingers followed the wire to a device hidden just inches beneath the surface. A landmine. Karim's voice cut through the commotion. "Sir, we've got explosives, not one, 3. Gasps echoed. Radios lit up with urgent chatter. The soldiers' faces, hardened by years of training, were now pale. The road had been turned into a kill zone, and they were seconds from driving. Straight into it, Traore stepped out of his SUV slowly, eyes locked on the cow, then the ground, then on Idrissa. For the first time that day, Idrissa looked afraid. The president said nothing. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any accusation. Around them, weapons were drawn, soldiers formed a tight perimeter, and radio calls buzzed across frequencies. The peaceful morning had exploded into crisis, and yet the cow remained, still, calm, watching. Some began to whisper, "What kind of animal doesn't flinch at gunfire, doesn't react to soldiers, but stands motionless above a landmine?" And more chillingly, had it known? Had something or someone sent it? One thing was now certain. This was no accident, and the cow was no ordinary animal. It had stopped them just in time. The dust still hung in the air, but the illusion of safety was shattered. President Traore stood motionless, his eyes fixed not on the cow or the mine, but on Idrissa. The advisor's confidence had vanished. His eyes darted, hands twitched, a thin sheen of sweat glistening on his forehead despite the morning chill. "We cleared this road yesterday," the president said, voice low, sharp. "Yes, sir," Idrissa replied quickly. "Our security team swept it. There were no signs." Karim crouched beside the mine, pointing to the soil. "This was planted recently. See this? A boot print. Fresh. The ground still soft. This wasn't here yesterday." Silence followed. Heavy. Uncomfortable. President Traore narrowed his view. "Someone knew we'd take this road," Idrissa's voice cracked. "Sir, maybe it's just the enemy trying their luck." But Traoré wasn't listening to his words. He was watching his hands, the nervous twitching, the deflective tone. And then it hit him. "You pushed for this route," the president said slowly. "Hard, too hard. We were late." Idrissa stammered. "You said, this road isn't even on the official travel list." Karim stepped closer, hand resting on his weapon. "And you claim to personally oversee the clearance." "Yes, I did," Idrissa stuttered, throat dry. Before more could be said, a motorbike roared down the path. It was Commander Siku, the head of security operations. He dismounted fast, his face grim. "Sir, may I speak with you alone?" The two men stepped aside. Siku spoke in a low voice. "I don't trust him," he said, glancing back at Idrissa. "And you won't like what we just found." He handed the president a device, an encrypted locator. One of Idrissa's private security guards was caught pinging our location to an unknown number. We traced it. Satellite uplink. Belongs to a foreign private military firm. Traoré's face turned to stone. Back at the convoy, Idrissa nervously scrolled through his phone, pretending to read messages he couldn't see. "He led us here," Traoré said quietly. "And someone made sure you wouldn't leave alive," Siku added. Just then a soldier called out, "The cow's moving!" Everyone turned, slowly, silently. The brown cow stepped aside and walked into the bush. Its job, it seemed, was done. But for President Ibrahy Trari, the real threat was only beginning to show its face. The air felt thicker now, buzzing with realization and betrayal. Soldiers moved swiftly, weapons were raised, radios crackled with new orders, and in the center of it all, President Ibrahy Trari stood unmoving. His eyes locked on Idrissa, who now looked less like an advisor and more like a man cornered by truth. "Search every inch of this road," Traoré commanded, his voice sharp and calm. "Every root, every tree. And arrest him. Do not let him speak to anyone." Idrissa opened his mouth to protest, but Traoré raised a single hand. "You told me this road was safe. You promised it. But a cow saved me before you could kill me." The words struck like thunder. Idrissa's knees gave slightly as soldiers dragged him away. The convoy didn't move forward. Instead, it reversed, slowly, carefully, under full military escort. Mines were marked, drones launched. Eyes scanned every shadow. There would be no more surprises. Back at the palace, silence reigned. No press conferences, no statements, only cold investigation. And in the center of it all, a president deep in thought. But outside, across the country, whispers began to swell into waves. On social media, at street corners, in mosques and schools, the story caught fire. A cow saved the president. Memes flooded the internet. Children painted cows with golden horns. Poets called it the divine cow of resistance. Journalists scrambled for facts. Spiritual leaders quoted it as a sign, and people, ordinary people who had long felt powerless, felt something stirring. Hope. That night, Traoré finally spoke. Calm, measured, with the strength of a man who had faced death and walked back holding truth. "They tried to kill me," he said. "Not with soldiers, but with money, with smiles, with betrayal. But they failed because something greater stood in their way." He looked directly into the camera. Yes, it was a cow, but it wasn't just luck. It was a message. He slammed, his palm on the desk. "From this day forward, no foreign military, no contractor, no spy agency will operate on our soil. We are not pawns. We are Burkina Faso." Across Africa, cheers erupted. And far beyond its borders, silence fell. Something had shifted. Africa had found its voice, and it was not afraid to roar. In the days that followed, Burkina Faso was no longer just a country in the headlines. It became a symbol. Not because of speeches or parades, but because something wild and improbable had shaken the ground beneath power. In a private room inside the presidential palace, President Traoré sat alone with a file, filled with maps, intercepted messages, satellite phone logs, and one strange photograph. A grainy drone image taken seconds before the mines were discovered. In the center of the frame stood the brown cow, alone, directly above the explosives, almost perfectly still. He stared at it for a long time. Later, Siku entered the room with new intel. "We confirmed it, sir. Idrissa was working with a foreign security contractor, likely linked to, well, you know who." Traoré nodded. He barely needed the details anymore. The betrayal had become systemic, deeper than any one man. He looked out the window and asked, "Do we know where the cow came from?" Siku shook his head. "We asked every village nearby. No one owns it. No tags. Doesn't match any local herds. It just showed up." Traoré allowed himself a faint smile and vanished when the job was done. Siku paused. Then, choosing his words carefully, said, "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Go ahead." "That wasn't just an animal. That was something else." The president didn't argue. He turned from the window, walked to his desk, and stood tall. "They tried to kill me with my own people. They plotted it down to the meter, but something greater stood in their way." He then revealed a new plan, Operation Mirror. Every foreign entity would be watched. Every palace staff member rotated. No more secrets, no more tolerance for whispers in the walls. And every attempt on his life, every betrayal would be exposed to the people in full light. No more silence, no more hiding. Weeks passed. The world began to take notice. The usual pressure stopped working. The old threats fell flat. Embassies were ignored. Contracts revoked. Burkina Faso was no longer compliant. It was becoming unshakable. Because Ibrahy Trari wasn't just a survivor anymore. He had become a legend. And the cow, it had simply stood where no one else could. They tried everything to break him. Landmines, poison, betrayal, technology, diplomacy disguised as death. But they forgot one thing. You can't kill a man protected by something greater than fear. A cow saved President Traoré. That's the headline. But the truth is deeper. It was never just about the animal. It was about what the cow stood for. Stillness in chaos. Truth in deception. Faith in a time when loyalty is rare. And that's why this story matters. Not just to Burkina Faso, but to every country that has been told it must kneel. Every leader who's been pressured to bend. Every person who believes power is untouchable. No, it isn't. Because sometimes the most powerful force on earth doesn't roar, it just stands. So ask yourself, what would you stand for if you were that cow facing a convoy, a mine, and the weight of history? Would you move? Let us know in the comments. Share this story. Let the world know. Africa is not silent. Africa is not weak. And sometimes Africa fights back with 4 legs and horns. Subscribe for more real undercover stories the world needs to hear. And remember, the quiet ones often speak the loudest.